Hey guys, how are you? I'm going to wait just a couple of minutes and see if anybody hops on. I always say I'm recording regardless so that I can make sure that this is shared out over on the website. So we'll wait just a couple of minutes and then we'll get going. Excited to be back tonight for sure. It's been a while. I can't wait to share some things with you guys and get back at it. It's been a while for sure. All right, I am going to go ahead and start sharing. And like I said, this will be recorded. I share all of my webinars that I do over on my website. I'm laughing because it's been a really long time since I've done one. I took a little bit of a break just because I wanted to really be able to spend some time with our family. My oldest left for college. We just had a lot going on all at once. You know, sometimes you just have to take that break to be a little bit present in the moment. Yolanda, hey, I'm so excited that you're here. It's so good to see you. We did some work together recently, so it was good to see you then. It's good to see you now. If you're here, I would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. That just kind of helps me know who's here. Makes this a little more comfortable. I'm nervous tonight because I haven't done this in so long, but I am really, like I said, excited to get back at it and be able to share and to talk tonight about something that's really been on my heart and something that I've been thinking about often. You know, even though I've taken a little break from these webinars and kind of pushed the pause button, I've been thinking about educators so much, as that's just kind of where my heart is. And I love to be able to share practical things, practical ideas. Tonight, there's going to be some practical, but I'm really going to focus on just some things that I think need to be said out loud, which may not be a good thing, but we'll see where it goes. All right. So first of all, before I even get started, I want to say that you guys can always find all of my webinars over at andymcnair.com/@home-learning. That's the website where I post my webinars each week, what's coming up, where you can register, and also where you can find all of the recorded webinars that I did all summer. So you guys check that out, andymcnair.com/@home-learning. I think, a lot of practical ideas and practical things that we can still continue to use moving forward. All right, I see some more of you guys jumping in. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I would love to see who's here and hear from you for sure. All right, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, really the thing that I wanted to talk about, is shifting from this survival mode, right, that a lot of us are in. And make no mistake, I understand why we're in that mode, but really moving to this place of thriving in this season and kind of where we are and what we're going through as educators. And, you know, I don't want to suggest by any stretch of the imagination that this is going to be easy moving forward or that it's going to get easier. I don't know what's going to happen. And anybody who says they do, probably not telling the truth. We're all kind of in this place of not being sure what's going to happen moving forward. And I think part of that is what brings some exhaustion and fatigue, is just that constant wondering, hey, what's tomorrow going to hold, or what's going to happen if? And so I've talked to so many people, and as school has begun to kind of start and teachers have started to go back, and I'll say things like, well, how's it going? Well, we're just surviving, or we're in survival mode. And that is so understandable, but it breaks my heart when I hear that, because I was out walking the other day, kind of late in the evening, and I just started really thinking through, what would it look like if we made the conscious decision to not just survive during this time, but to thrive? And so I came right home that night. You guys know, I love to look up the definition of words. Melinda, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining. I love to look up the definitions of words sometimes and just really think through what they mean and what it means for us. So I went ahead and looked up the word survive. And so the definition of survive is to manage to keep going in difficult circumstances. And I think we'd all agree that we are in difficult circumstances right now, right? We're in this place where things are not easy. Things are difficult and we don't know what's going to happen. So because of that, I think we have to really consider, are we choosing to just keep going? Is that what we want to do? Just put one foot in front of the other? Because I know that's what it feels like. And I know that feeling. I've been in situations where it feels like if I can just get to the next day, or I can just get to the next place. But then I looked up the word thrive. And I thought, oh my gosh, now this makes so much sense. And so the word thrive means to grow or to develop well. So I think when we think about both of those words, right, when we think about surviving and just managing to get through the circumstances versus really growing through these circumstances, it makes sense to at least benefit somehow from this, right? At least to get something out of this experience that is beneficial. And again, I'll say this over and over tonight. I never want to suggest that this is easy or that this is something that is going to be, easy moving forward. It's going to be hard, but I think we have some opportunities to grow as an educational system and as educators throughout this situation that we find ourselves in. So I just want to share some practical ways that I think you can do that and some things that I have found myself doing as I've worked with educators. Because it is such a difficult season. And it is, I've often said all summer long, it feels like an obstacle course and there's just obstacle after obstacle. And we get to that place to where we just think, if there's another obstacle after this one, I don't know if I can keep going. But the reality is, as educators, we have kept going and we have continued to run the race. We're not at the finish line yet. I don't know when we're going to get there, but I know eventually we will. And if we do this right, we're going to be able to look back and realize not only did we run the race and not only did we cross the finish line, but we are better for it. And we are stronger as an educational community because of it. So let's just get right into it. Let's talk about some practical things that I think you can do right now to begin to thrive in this situation, to move beyond simply being tired and simply feeling like you are trying to keep going, right? Instead, we want to kind of experience that growth. I think the first thing we have to do is recognize why we are doing things. This is not the time, and I will say this to anybody, anytime, anyone who will listen. This is not the time or the place to do something just for the sake of doing it. Nor is it the time for us to continue doing what we've always done. And here's why. You can't fit a square peg into a round hole, right? We cannot make this situation like what it always was. I'm going to give you an example of that. I've recently gotten several calls from educators or administrators or whoever, and it's a great question. I mean, it makes total sense that we're asking it. And that question is, how do I take a worksheet and put it into an LMS? And that makes so much sense right now, right? Because we're having to use our LMS for our at-home learners and hopefully for our in-class learners as well. But that question really has me thinking, are we trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? Are we trying to take what we've always done and find a way to do it in this situation? Let's just say out loud, this is different, right? We've never experienced something like this before. So I would just ask you to ask yourself why you're doing something. So let's take worksheets, for example. Usually when we assign a worksheet, there are two things that we're looking for. Either skills practice, right? Them practicing a specific skill, or a demonstration of understanding. We want them to show us that they understand something. So I think we have to ask ourselves, is there another way that they can do that? Is there another way that they can practice this skill? Or is there another way that they could demonstrate understanding? Now, that may not always be the case. There may not be another way. The worksheet may be how they have to do that. I get it. But there are times when we have to look to something different. We have to be able to say, you can't fit a square peg in a round hole, and we're going to wear ourselves out trying. So I think instead of trying to find solutions to take what we've always done and put it into this situation, I think we would be better off if we ask ourselves, is there a different way that I could do this, or that I could get to whatever it is that I'm trying to do? Now, the only way you can do that is to know why you're doing it, right? Why am I assigning this worksheet? Why am I teaching this content? Another example is direct teach. We know that direct teach is powerful. That's not a secret. John Hattie's work tells us that. But it's not the only way for our students to learn. There are so many other things that they can do. Learn by doing, project-based learning, passion-based learning, right? Learning as they actually are not sitting in front of a computer, but they are doing something. So I think about direct teach, right? How do you do that? What does that look like? I think one solution to that is front loading, understanding I'm usually direct teaching to provide information. So could I work smarter, not harder, in the words of one of my really good friends? Lisa says that all the time. And it's so true, right? So could I go ahead and record mini lessons? I'm a big fan of Flipgrid Shorts for that. Could I get on Flipgrid Shorts and could I create mini lessons for the week? And then share those mini lessons in the LMS so that there is an opportunity for my students to go get the information that I need, but I don't necessarily have to be sitting in front of the computer talking to them in order for that to happen, right? That's what I would always do. I feel like I have to be with them and I have to be talking to them in order for them to learn, but I have to really consider my why. And if my why is to deliver the information, there are other ways that I can do that. Same thing when it comes to worksheets. If I want them to demonstrate understanding, can they do that same thing by recording a video in Flipgrid and telling me their thought process and telling me what they learned and how they learned it? And would that be easier? Is it a little more work? Absolutely. But is it on the back end going to be easier and help you feel like you are doing what you normally would have done in the classroom in a different way? Absolutely. I just think that it's exhausting to continue to try to make what we've always done work in this situation. It simply will not. This is different. All right. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that kind of came across. And I think that one of the things we also have to say, and I've said this on this the webinars before, is that there has to be a willingness to pivot, right? There has to be that place. I think we talked about this one time, that Friends episode, where Ross and they were bringing I think it was Ross and Chandler and I can't remember who else, but they were bringing the couch up the stairs, right? And they're yelling, pivot, pivot. And the couch is just getting stuck. And I feel like sometimes if we're not willing to pivot based on either the feedback that we're receiving from our students or the feedback we're receiving from parents, or if we're an administrator, the feedback we may be receiving from our teachers, we are going to get stuck just like they were in that stairwell, right? There's going to come a place where the movement is not happening and it's frustrating for everyone involved. And so that willingness to pivot based on the feedback, in order to know if you need to pivot, you have to ask for that feedback. We have to constantly be asking, is this working? Is this not working? So thinking through that, knowing why you're doing something, and then being willing to pivot based on what is and isn't working, I think are two things that can really help during this time. Another thing that I want to make sure that we talk about is focusing on growth over goals. I think a lot of us as educators, we are goal setters, right? I know that I like to say, okay, I hope for this to happen in a certain amount of time, or I hope to accomplish this by this time. The hard thing about goals is that they're not always realistic and you're not always going to reach them. And right now, I think in the education system, we have enough opportunities to maybe not meet goals or not do what we hoped we would do or could do. I don't think we need to create that situation for ourselves, is what I'm trying to say. So instead of thinking about goals, I think it's important to think about growth, right? And that may need to happen every single day. I know that for me, even doing things virtually and talking to teachers virtually, that was a real shift for me. It was hard. And I'll be honest, I didn't like it at first. I was like, I can't do this. I like to be with them and talking to them. It's the same as you guys wanting to be with your students, right? I like to feel their reactions and build those relationships. And I really had to start focusing on, you know what, this isn't about an end, a finish line, right? This is about me getting over obstacle, one obstacle at a time. And it's about me finding growth in each one of those. So what I started doing was asking myself 3 questions really at the end of every day. And these questions kind of stem from something that I thought about as we were working through professional learning for the summer and what teachers, what would help teachers decide what they needed in professional learning and that type of thing. But really, I started to use these questions for myself. And at the end of every day, I would ask myself these things in order to kind of grow. I would first of all think about, hey, what was the most difficult thing that you experienced today? Was it, trying to be engaging online? Did something with the technology go wrong? What was most challenging? What was most difficult? And then thinking to myself, okay, if that was hard for me, what am I going to do about it? Can I go talk to a colleague that's really good at that? Can I go read a blog post that helps me learn more about that? And I know what comes to your mind, because it came to my mind too, is I don't have time for that right now, right? I don't have time to learn. I have to really focus on just getting through every day. But I think being intentional about just having conversations and just being able to say out loud, like, you know what, that sucked. That was really bad. I have had to learn how to do that. And it's hard. I don't like to say that. Anybody who knows me will tell you, I do not like to say that something did not go well. But I've had to learn to say to people, you know what? You're really good at this. I'm really not good at this. Could you just tell me how you did that? Or I'll just see somebody use a tool in something else that we're doing, and I'll just write it down and think, oh my gosh, that was a great idea. I'm going to talk to them later about that. So that I'm not necessarily adding more time or adding more work to my day. Instead, I'm thinking about how can learning from them help me figure this out so that I don't have to go do a ton of extra work. I think the next question that we need to ask ourselves, and one that I often ask myself, is what did I enjoy most today, right? After I've thought about what was really hard or what really sucked, what was really great? Where did I really kill it that day? Or is there something that I didn't do that well, but I enjoyed doing it? And so asking yourself that with your at-home learners or your in-class learners, what did you enjoy most today? Was it the relationships? Was it that killer lesson that you provided? What was it that really made you excited today as an educator? Because it's important that we find those little moments right now, because they're few and far between. I get that. I know that right now, I was reading the comments on the form, and one of them just said, in fact, I teared up a little bit because it just said it's week 1 and I am so exhausted. And I want to say, I understand that. And I don't want to ever minimize that. It's so hard right now. But be intentional about thinking about finding that one thing, like what was the part of the day today where I really went, you know what, that wasn't that bad. Or, you know what, I really like that part of my day. And it might be, it was when I was walking out of the building, right? It was when I was actually logging off. That was the best part of my day. That's okay, but find something to be grateful for. Find something that you did well and say that out loud. Tell somebody, if it's your spouse, if it's your dog, if it's your kids, just say, you know what, this is something I really enjoyed about today. And I just need to say that out loud. The last question I think you can ask yourself at the end of the day is, how has your perspective changed because of those things? Because of what I didn't do well or what I didn't enjoy, and because of what I did enjoy, how has that changed my perspective, and how can I grow in that, right? How can I use that to grow? If it's something I'm not good at, how can I grow from that? If it's something I am good at, or it's something I did enjoy, can I help somebody else grow? Or can I just grow from that, right? What does that look like? So using those two questions to then ask yourself, how has your perspective changed? I think can kind of help with that exhaustion. Because I think when we get to the end of the day and we don't reflect on it, sometimes we look at the whole day as being terrible, right? Like, oh my gosh, it was just a wash. I do that so often. But then when I'm really intentional about stopping and saying, but you know what? There was that one moment when I said that one thing, and I saw an educator on the screen kind of smile, or they said in the chat, you know what, that really meant a lot to me that you said that. It's those little things. And you guys have those moments with your students, right? When you have that one kid who says, oh my gosh, thank you so much for reaching out. Or you have a parent who emails and says, thank you for sharing that mini lesson, or thank you for connecting with me. It's those little things that we're going to have to hold on to right now to get through this really tough obstacle that we're kind of climbing over right now. So thinking through those things, I think, are really important. So growth over goals, but in order to achieve that growth, we have to be intentional. So asking yourself those questions: what was most difficult? What did I enjoy most? And how has my perspective changed because of those things? That leads right into my next point, which is that perspective matters, right? There has to be a shift in the way you see things right now. We have to be willing to see things differently and do things differently, which is what we talked about at the beginning, right? Can't fit a square peg into a round hole. If you've ever seen Apollo 13, the movie, there's a great clip from that movie. And they actually have that conversation, right? Something is wrong. And there's this panic moment. And they say, you guys have got to find a way. He looks at his crew on the ground and he says, you guys have got to find a way to fit a square peg into a round hole. And they go into this room and they pour out all of these materials. And they just know we have to do it, right? It's not an option. We have to do this. In order to save their lives, this has to happen. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. Like, this is hard. And if we look at it from one perspective, it almost seems impossible, right? Like, I'm not sure we can really pull this off. But if we look at it from another perspective, the reality is we don't have a choice. There's not an option not to pull it off. There's not an option not to make this work. Not only do we need to make this work for the kids who are, deserve to learn in a meaningful way, we have to make this learning, we have to make it work for us as educators, because for the most part, we love what we do. We go to work every day because we love kids, right? And we want them to be able to learn in a way that makes sense. And I think that's why so many are so tired, is because it feels like I can't be doing this right, or this can't be what this is supposed to feel like. And I just want to say to you, what you're doing is enough, right? It's enough. If you are trying every day and you are trying to create solutions and you're asking for feedback, it's enough. And it's okay to say, you know what? My perspective is going to be what determines how this day goes today. And I know that's cliche. I mean, I remember my mom used to say that to me, like, your attitude is going to determine how your day goes today. And I would think, well, then we're all in a lot of trouble because my attitude is not great. And I still have days like that now, right? Where I wake up and I'm like, I'm not feeling it today. And as educators, we all have those moments. But it really is true that your perspective has the potential to change everything. I'm a huge fan of Survivor right now. I think last time I talked to you guys, I was watching Amazing Race. Now I'm watching every season of Survivor, and I'm such a super fan of the show. And I was looking for some quotes because I was actually looking for a video, because there are so many situations on that show where perspective really determines whether or not they survive. And I would say that the people that just go on to Survivor to survive, or just go on to get through it, don't make it very far in the game. They're usually the first ones to either, last season that I watched, there were a couple of people who actually quit. There are some people who were voted off early just because they're whiny and annoying, whatever that is. But there is a difference between going on that show in order to survive and going on that show in order to thrive. And so right now I'm watching a season with there's a guy on there named Ozzy. And if you've ever seen the show, you probably know who he is. He's been on the show like 3 times. But I want to tell you something about him in just a second. But before I do, I want to share this quote, because it's from Jeff Probst, who's the host of Survivor. And this makes so much sense. He says, "The adventure you're ready for is the one that you get." And I think that is exactly what I'm trying to put into words right now. It's our perspective that matters, right? When you're preparing for something like the game of Survivor, which I would compare to what we're going through as educators right now, when you are preparing for something like that, it's really about what you want to get out of the situation that's going to determine what happens for you moving forward. And so I love that idea of the adventure you're ready for is the one you get. And even that mindset, right? Seeing this as an adventure, right? That around every corner, we don't know what's going to happen. We are tired and we're worn out and we aren't sure where we're going to get the things that we need from. But it really could be seen as an adventure. And I really, really like that. So on this season that I'm watching right now, Aussie is on, and there's this place called Redemption Island. And so you guys stay with me for a second if I can help you understand this. If you watch the show, then you know what I'm talking about. But all the survivors are on one island. And if you get voted out, you go to something called Redemption Island. And it's on that island that you can kind of redeem yourself. So Ozzy ended up getting voted out, and his perspective though right now is what is keeping him in the game, because he says all the time, you know what, over there, they have a lot of opportunities to complain and to get themselves into these hard conversations and all of these difficult things. On Redemption Island, I have the opportunity every day to figure things out. I have to go find my own food. I have the opportunity to exercise and get stronger. And as I was watching that today and this afternoon, I thought, you know what? That is exactly the perspective we're going to have as educators, right? We don't want to be on an island by ourselves for sure. But if we can have that perspective of, this is what I want to get out of this. It is going to be hard. It sucks. It's not fun. But is there something that I can gain from this? Is there something that I can see in this situation where I can grow, right? And I can help my learners grow. But we have to look for those things. They're not just going to be right in front of us. We have to be able to look and say, you know what? I see this as an opportunity, and I'm going to use it as such so that I'm able to grow and I'm able to give my learners that opportunity to grow. So I think one way you can do that, and I talk about this all the time. If you've ever heard me share, you know that I say it all the time, but it's just, I just think it's so important. And that is to identify, activate, and share your core beliefs. So know what you think your students at home deserve, and know what you think your students in class deserve. And spoiler alert, those shouldn't be two different things, right? Whatever your in-class learners deserve, your at-home learners deserve. I've even gone as far as to say, you know what? If I were you, I would take a 360 image of your classroom and I would put that in your LMS, because even if they're learning from home, they deserve to see your classroom. Take a picture of every single anchor chart that you already have hanging in your room and the anchor charts that you guys create along the way, and make sure that your at-home learners have access to those. For one, those are instructional supports. For two, that is how we are going to be able to say, you know what, even if you're learning at home, you deserve the same experience as those that are learning in class. So two simple things that you can do: 360 image of your classroom and taking pictures of your anchor charts. Really easy, really quick, but gives your at-home learners that opportunity to for you to say, I think you guys deserve everything that our in-class learners are getting to experience. So thinking about your core beliefs, just ask yourself that question. What do I believe every learner deserves from my classroom? You know, for me, some of my core beliefs are, I believe that every learner deserves to experience new learning. I don't think that any kid should have to sit through something that they already know. I believe that every learner deserves the opportunity to pursue their passions during the school day. I believe that they all deserve the opportunity to learn by doing, learn from failure. And finally, I believe that every learner deserves the opportunity to share their work beyond the walls of the classroom. So if I say those are my core beliefs, right, and they're ingrained in who I am as an educator, I believe those things to be true. If I say that, I then have to really think about my perspective each day. If I believe that every kid deserves to experience new learning, what is that going to look like for my early finishers, or for my kids who finish their at-home work really quickly? What am I going to have in place? If I believe that every kid deserves the opportunity to pursue their passions, how am I going to do that? And I have to seek out those things. It's all intentionality, right? So I think if you could take some time, and I know you don't have a lot of time right now, I'm certainly not suggesting that, but maybe if you could take 5 or 10 minutes, maybe after we hop off of this webinar, and ask yourself, what do I believe that every kid deserves from the learning experience, whether they are in class or at home? And then just every day, start finding little solutions. Oh, here's a way that I can activate that core beliefs. Here's a way that I can activate that core belief so that you feel like you're taking steps and that you are growing, because that's what this has got to be about. It can't be about this huge goal of, I hope that 80% of my kids log on and blah, blah, blah. It's fine to say those things and have those things, but let's be real. Most of the time as educators, because a lot of us are overachievers, our goals are not always realistic. And right now, we don't need to set ourselves up for unrealistic goals. Instead, let's take baby steps and let's look for those opportunities to recognize growth in ourselves and in each other. And be able to say to another teacher, you know what, I know this may not have been a big deal to you, but I just saw the way you interacted with those kids online, and I thought it was very, very cool. It's just something small like that that has the potential to change everything. It doesn't take a huge pat on the back to make someone's day, but it does take us standing up for each other, recognizing that this is hard, and being willing to say, we don't have this all figured out, and no one should expect us to, right? I've said all along, there were no best practices in place for emergency remote learning during a global pandemic. They didn't exist. So now we have this opportunity to step into this place of not just surviving. That's what we did during the remote learning experience. We had to react, right? We had to figure things out very quickly. But now we have this opportunity to reflect on that and really take this opportunity to be proactive and to think through, what did we learn from that and what are we going to do with it? So that's where we move from just surviving, right? Remember, surviving simply means to manage to keep going in difficult circumstances, to instead thriving, right? To grow during this time and to develop as educators so that we can take some of this with us moving forward. I think what will really be not a good thing is if we get to the end of this, right? If we come to the finish line and we just go, oh my gosh, what a relief. And we just go back to business as usual. That is that statement, like, gosh, we're just so ready to get back to business as usual. I hope we never go back to business as usual. I'm just going to say that out loud. I hope that instead we use this as a time to create sustainable change. Because if we do that, as educators, we will feel like it was worth it. Right? We won't feel like we've gone through all of this for nothing. That's when it seems exhausting, right? When you get to the end of the week or you get to the end of your day and you have no idea, how does what happened today do anything in regards to moving us forward? That's why you have to be intentional about those questions, right? Every single day, ask yourself, every single day, even if you're laying in bed at night, just ask yourself, what did I enjoy most about today? What was most difficult, and how did it change my perspective? Because at least asking those questions, it gives your day purpose. There was a reason that you went through those things. There was a reason that, you can find meaning in your day and what you've experienced. So I hope that those things kind of help. I hope that they make sense and help you kind of get through just moving from surviving to really thriving in the school year, because that is what I want for every single one of you. And like I said at the beginning of this webinar, I never want to suggest that it's going to be easy. I never want to suggest that I have it all figured out or that I think all of these solutions are going to help. I don't know. I want to say out loud some of the things that need to be said on behalf of teachers right now. I want you guys to know that you are enough. And I just want to be able to support you in any way that I can. Our learners deserve so much. And the kids who are sitting in our classrooms right now don't deserve any less than those kids who were sitting in our classrooms before we ever heard of COVID-19 or masks or any social distancing, any of this stuff. They deserve just as much of a meaningful experience as anyone else. So how do we do that? What does that look like? We have to continue to find those solutions. And if we're just surviving, we won't be able to do that. But if we look for opportunities to thrive and opportunities to grow, I think we'll start to realize oh my gosh, we are actually creating sustainable change. And it's because of this situation that we were actually able to cross this finish line and be better and stronger for it. So I appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. I am here to support you in any way that I can. If you have a question, if you need something, if there's a tool you're considering, feel free to reach out. Again, you can always look over on my website at andymcnair.com/@home-learning for information, other webinars. I usually share a lot more practical than what I did tonight, but I felt like some of those things needed to be said out loud, and I wanted to start kind of this beginning of the school year off with that conversation. So andymcnair.com, you guys visit, check it out. I will be doing webinars every Monday night now, 8:00 p.m. Central Standard Time here on my Facebook page and over on my YouTube channel. I would love for you guys to be here. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and the work that we'll continue to do, right? Moving forward to create the sustainable change that I think so many of us know that we need. I love you guys, the Meaningful Mess community. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. You guys get some rest. Enjoy a Dr. Pepper. That's what I'm about to do. Get some rest. Take care of you. Know that you're enough and just know how much the work that you're doing is appreciated for sure. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Bye, y'all.